Alright, first I just want to say thank you so much for enrolling in my class. I'm super excited to be teaching on this subject. I truly believe that the graph editor is the most valuable piece of knowledge that I can pass on to you. It's amazing what it can do to your animations. Now, if at any point you feel confused or you feel like I didn't explain something clearly enough, please go to the discussions page and leave a comment on the Ask Me Anything thread, and I will be more than happy to work through something with you, and definitely go back and revise these videos to make future students' learning experiences easier. Alright, let's get into this project. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through how I made this house animation. It might look pretty complicated, but it's actually really simple. There's just lots of layers to it. And pretty much all of the animation uses the graph editor in some way to smooth out the motion. So let's get to it. The first thing I did was design my house inside of Illustrator. Typically I like to design my artwork inside of Illustrator and then bring it into After Effects and recreate it there. I just prefer to design inside of Illustrator because I feel like I can get stuff done quicker. You can see here that this is my reference image. This is the house that I grew up in. I just used that as a visual reference and designed my house as closely to it as possible. It's very simple, not a lot of detail, just some rectangles, some triangles, and then a couple of custom shapes down here for the bushes. If you're new to After Effects, I want to encourage you to keep your design as simple as possible. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. Now, if you've been using After Effects for a while and you want to do something a little bit more complicated, by all means, go ahead. There's no limit to the amount of detail you can put in, it's just depending on how much animation you want to have in it, the longer it'll take you to make. But I'll leave that decision completely up to you. For the class project, I'm going to stick to this. Alright, before we get going, I want to just explain a little bit about my layout in After Effects. I've only opened up the panels that I think I'll be needing for this project. It's okay if your layout doesn't look like this, but just know that if you see a panel that I have open that isn't open on yours, just go up to the window dropdown and you can see all of the different panels within After Effects. Alright, so first let's bring in our artwork. I'll come over to the project panel, right click inside of it, and go to Import File. I'll grab my house file from Illustrator and hit open. Now we have it inside of After Effects. Next I want to make a composition by coming down to the new composition button and clicking on it. And I want my comp to be 800 by 600 pixels. I chose 800 by 600 because I want it to have a 4:3 ratio, and I know I don't need it any higher resolution than that. If you want this to be HD, feel free to change the resolution to whatever you want, but for this project I'm going to leave it at 800 by 600. I want my frame rate to be 30, and the duration of my comp to be about 20 seconds. I don't think my animation is going to be that long, but I just want to give myself enough workspace in case I need it. Then I'll hit OK to create my composition, and then I'll bring my artwork into the composition by clicking and dragging on the file until it snaps to the center of the composition and let go. Next I want to convert my artwork into a shape layer so that I can animate it inside After Effects a little easier. To do that, I'll right click on the file, scroll down in this menu until I get to Create Shapes from Vector Layer. And you'll see that that hid my original artwork and created a shape layer that looks exactly the same. The problem is that everything is on one layer, and if I open up this layer and go into the contents, you can see we just have a whole bunch of groups that all represent each individual shape within my artwork. So we need to separate the different shape groups into different layers so that we can animate them more easily. To do this, I'll make a little bit more room by moving my mouse between the timeline panel and the composition panel until my mouse turns to this little double arrow. I'll click and drag to make my panel a little bit bigger so I can see more of my timeline. Then I'll scroll up until I get to group 1. I'll click on the first group and see that we've selected part of this light. If I zoom in by pressing the period key on the keyboard and then hold spacebar to temporarily change to the hand tool, I'll click and drag to reposition, and we can see that group 1 is just a portion of that lamp. So groups 1 through 4 are that lamp on the right hand side. So if I click on group 4 and then shift click on group 1, I have all 4 groups selected, and if I press Apple or Control on a PC plus G, that will group all 4 groups together. Now with the new group selected, I can press Enter on the keyboard and rename the layer Right Lamp, and press Enter again to confirm the rename. Now I just repeat this process for every object that I want to separate into a different layer. So next I want to do the left lamp, which should be the next 4 groups. There it is. I'll group it by pressing Apple G or Control G on a PC, rename it by pressing Enter, left lamp, Enter again, and I'll just do this for the entire piece. I'll zoom back out on my composition by pressing the comma key on the keyboard, and then reposition again by holding spacebar to bring up the hand tool, and I want to talk a little bit about how I'm going to animate this. I want to break up all these windows into individual layers, but I also know that I want to animate them all exactly the same way. So really I just need one of the windows, and then I can make 5 duplicates of it after I've animated it. So if I scroll through my group and find where one of these windows are, here we go. So groups 35 and 36 are this window. If I group those two together, and rename it upper window. Then I can just use this single group to make all 5 duplicates. So I'm not even going to worry about these other 4 windows right now. Then I'll do the same thing for the lower windows. I'll find out where one of those are. So groups 30 through 32 are one of the lower windows. So I'll group those together, rename it. Then I don't have to worry about the other 3 lower windows. For anything that has multiple copies of the same animation, I will only need 1 instance of. So if I find out where one of my bushes are, here we go. Since it's a single shape, I don't even have to group it again. I'll just rename it to bush. Then let's find the door. Okay. So groups 19 through 26. Group those together, rename it door. And to make sure that I have all the objects for the door, I'm going to just turn off the eyeball for that group, and sure enough, all of those objects are within that group, so we're looking good. Next, there's this doorstep. And then the base of the house. And then the last group is the siding and the trim and the roof. And I think that's everything that we need. Now I can get rid of any of the groups that aren't renamed. So I'll select all of those groups and hit delete until I'm left with just the groups that I renamed. And now I have all the different elements that I need separated out into different groups, so I can more easily break this into multiple layers. I'm going to rename this layer by having it selected and pressing enter, and then calling it House Elements Master. I want to name it that so that I don't accidentally modify that layer. I'll always make a duplicate of it before I change anything inside it. That way I can always come back to my original elements if I ever need to. The next thing I should mention is that you should get in the habit of saving all the time. I have not yet saved my project, and that's really bad. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll name mine House Build and hit save. So after you've saved your project initially, all you have to do to save again is hit Apple or Control S. So remember to save your progress all the time.